Hey guys, today I want to talk about the 3 most likely things that will break on my mountain bike when I'm out riding, which I can fix out on the trail. The first of these is that the shifting isn't as crisp as it was on the last ride. The second is the brakes start making some squealing noise and/or they lose power. The third is when I drop the dropper lever, the dropper either is sluggish going down or sluggish coming back up. Now what I want to go over is not an exhaustive list of all the issues and problems that could be causing this, but I just want to talk about the most likely problem with each one of these things, how you can fix it on the trail, and what kind of preventive measure can you take before you go ride your bike that will most likely avoid this problem. So let's get into it. If your shifting becomes a little bit less crisp, the most likely reason is that this nut right here has come loose. And the main thing you need to do on the trail to get your shifting restored is to go in and tighten this nut, just to give it just a little nudge, maybe a quarter turn or a half turn. Now to prevent this problem before you ever go and ride, what you can do is take your torque wrench, set it to 11 Newton meters. Take that torque wrench before you ride and tighten it to 11 Newton meters. Then take an acrylic marker and mark the nut so that you'll know where it is when it's set at 11 Newton meters. Once you have it marked, if it comes loose on the trail, all you need to do is twist it back so that the markers are lined up. So if you're out on the trail and you've marked the nut and suddenly your shifting isn't as crisp as it used to be, and you get off the bike and look, you'll see that the marker is no longer lined up. And all you need to do to get your shifting back to where it was is to turn the nut until the marking is lined up. And at that point, you should have restored shift crisping on your bike. The second most common problem on the trail is that your brakes are losing stopping power and/or they start to squeal. The most likely problem here is that the brake rotors have become contaminated and/or the brake pads have become contaminated. To fix this problem out on the trail, you got to somehow clean off as best you can the brake rotor, and you've got to scuff up the brake pads. So to clean up the rotor, what I have done is take my sock off and then take the sock and clean the rotor. Don't touch the rotor with your hand because the grease from the oil from your hand will actually make the contamination worse. Now the second thing you need to do here is you're going to have to clean off the pads, and the first thing you got to do is remove the pads. So here I'm just going to remove the retaining clip. Then I'm going to remove the pads. And what you want to do, make sure you remember this pad goes on the left side. You don't want to get them mixed up. Take the pad and take a rock and just use the rock and the rough surface on the rock has sandpaper to clean off the face of the pad. Now it's very important, don't touch the pad with your finger and try not to to in any way touch it. Get it, once you get it scraped off pretty good, put it back in, and then do the same thing for the other pad and get all the pads in the caliper as scuffed up as possible. Now these fixes on the brake rotors can be a little tricky, but if you're already losing power and got a lot of squealing going on, odds are you won't make it any worse. And if you are persistent and are careful and take your time, most likely you can get a restoration of enough braking power so that you can continue on with your ride, and then once you get back home, you can get it completely sorted out. Once you do get home, for your brakes, the way you want to avoid having this problem in the future, periodically inspect your brakes, clean the rotors with a brake cleaner, and also take the pads out, sand off anything that's on the pads, get them down to where the pads look relatively clean, put them back together, and just take the bike for a short test ride out before you ride it. Doing a little bit of maintenance on the brakes, the rotors, and the pads before you ride, it'll go a long way to maintaining your braking power and to prevent the brakes from squealing when you're out riding. The most likely problem with the dropper is that the tension for the cable has gotten loose at the dropper lever, and what you need to do is adjust the barrel adjuster to make the cable tighter. Now what will happen, this particular cable here will start to fray. It won't break. Very rarely have I ever had it just break immediately. Most likely what will happen, as it's being pushed and bent, it will suddenly start to break a little bit in here, and when it does, the cable will lengthen, and just lengthening the cable just a little bit will cause the dropper post to go down, up and down much more slowly. So what you do is, if it starts happening out on the trail, you probably have a little time before the cable breaks, and all you need to do is go in and twist the barrel adjuster so that it makes the cable tighter. And that will take up the little bit of slack that you're having and will cause the dropper post action to restore. Now that's there are a lot of problems you can have with the dropper post, but that's in my experience, that's the most likely problem and the most likely way to fix it. Now the best preventive measure for your dropper post is before you go ride, just take a good look at this cable before you ride. And what you will a lot of times see in that cable, you'll see where it's sort of breaking just a little bit, have one or two strands that are broken. If that's the case, stop what you're doing, replace the cable, and get it all set up before you go ride. And most of the time, if you do that, you'll have no trouble with your dropper post. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are the things that, in my experience, are the three most likely things to break when you're out riding your bike. Those are ways that you can fix it out on the trail, and those are ways that you can avoid having the problem by doing some pre-ride maintenance. I hope I've given you guys something to think about, and I'll see you at the top.